Giannis Antetokounmpo says the Bucks are Damian Lillard's team. Quote, I'm his biggest fan. Good or bad, I ride with Dame until the end. I ride with Dame. Like I've been saying this over and over again, this is his team. Down the stretch, he's going to get the ball. There's nothing else that we will do. I don't know how else to put it. I don't know what else to say. But at the end of the day, he has to believe it, too. Okay. I feel like there's a lot to unpack here, Tim.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot in here. Break it down for me.
Well, look, first of all, I think that Giannis is being sincere. He would like that in a perfect world for that to be the case. Like Dame to be that guy, Dame to believe he's that guy. Kind of similar, if you think about, to what the Lakers went through down in the bubble. LeBron genuinely gave control in the reins to Anthony Davis because he knew that he needed him to be that for them to win it, and they did, and he genuinely accepted that. I think Giannis believes it. The problem is I'm not sure that Damian Lillard has felt comfortable thinking of himself that way since he got there. And this has got to be a strange thing for Damian Lillard. It's the first time, I'm sure, in his life he's not the best player on his own team. So you think about, his entire career and everything he did in Portland, and he was scrutinized and we looked at him a certain way, but we also knew he was never on a team good enough to really win it. He goes to Milwaukee and right off the bat, immediately, expectations are championship right now. You're paired with Giannis Antetokounmpo. And by the way, you're not the best player on the team, so let's see what that feels like when you're playing. And when I watch them play, I don't get yet that they have figured out the perfect flow between the two of them on the court. So Giannis is doing everything he can to empower Damian Lillard, but the problem is Giannis casts such a long shadow that I think Damian Lillard still understands that he's in that shadow. No, late game, that's different. Yeah, Damian Lillard is going to have the ball a lot because he's delivered, and he's a better option a lot of times in running ball screen with Damian Lillard, the ball in his hands. He's 90-plus from the line. He's a deep three-point threat if that's what it takes. So I get all of that. But to say that it's Dame's team is taking it too far. This is Giannis's team, and the best they can hope for, Wendy, I think, let's figure out a way to max out how we coexist. And we do this together. And there are going to be stretches in games when it feels like it's Lillard's show. But it really isn't. It's ultimately Giannis that gets it done. I think he's trying to mentally convince Damian Lillard of something that so far to me and what I've observed is not coming easy to him. Playing alongside a guy like Giannis and feeling that empowered to play that way all the time. And I think that's what Giannis is alluding to because he thinks that's the best path for them to win a title because Giannis knows he's going to affect the game in every single way across the board. Defense, rebounding, playmaking, whatever it takes, and he'll always put up big scoring numbers. Lillard, it's really going to be judged in one way. Are you putting up numbers? Are you doing it efficiently? And are you making shots that are timely when we have to have them? That is what's on Damian Lillard's plate, really only. And that's what Giannis is trying to convince him of and empower him to do. And I don't think it's come very easy to Damian Lillard so far, Wendy.
These are good comments because they indicate that Giannis is words that he's dedicated to it. But the truth is that their pairing on the court has not gone great. And I don't think it's a personality conflict. I just think that it's a unfamiliar place. It's not something that either of them have done before, and it just hasn't really borne fruit yet. That doesn't mean that it won't by the spring. It doesn't mean that it can't. But that idea of them being a great pick-and-roll team, it hasn't happened. It's not something that had the instantaneous chemistry that I think a lot of people thought. I mean, I know Giannis thought it because he did it with his actions. He went and signed the contract days after Dame got there. He believed in it. Like that, to me, actions over words. He does believe in it. And I'll also say this. I don't think that it all has to be on this season. If it doesn't work this year and they don't hit their absolute height, if they're showing potential, they can come back. Dame is not 39 years old like LeBron. Dame has years left. Giannis has signed there for years. The team probably needs a little bit of work. They're in the middle of all kinds of coaching changes and stuff like that. But I do think that they need to have progress between now and the end of the season. And one of the other things is Dame's been in a pretty big slump. If you go back and look since the first of the year, he's shooting barely over 30% on threes. His catch and shoot numbers, not that that's what he is as a catch and shoot player. His catch and shoot numbers are down near 25% on threes. His dominance in stretching the floor has just not been there. He's frankly having the worst shooting season he's had in a decade if you take out that year 2 years ago where he was playing through the sports hernia and had to, at midseason, had to just stop and go get surgery. He was having a miserable year that year. If you take that out, he's not shooting or scoring or doing anything like he did before. So I think Giannis's sentiments are appreciated and ultimately could yield to good things here, but that is not what we are seeing necessarily take place on the floor.
Well, before we move on here real quick, I just want to ask you that in terms of him being in a slump, what are you attributing that to, Dame?
Not making shots. He's just, I do think the ball is not in his hands as much, even though I know Giannis says he wants the ball in his hands. And look, Molly, we may get to April and May, and we may see playoff games where this works brilliantly, where it's a tie game with 4 minutes to go, and Dame makes 3 shots down the stretch, and Giannis makes 1, and they're in the post-game press conference with their arms around each other going, this is what our vision was. That is absolutely still on the table. But right now, Dame is not shooting the ball great and not feeling, obviously, a great flow. The Bucks are underachieving, and that's just the truth of it. That, again, doesn't mean that it won't work. But those comments from Giannis are one thing. The actual production on the court has been another.
Listen, here's one thing I will say, Wendy. I agree with you about certain teams matchup-wise with the Lakers being a little bit of a problem. What's going to be very interesting, and this will just further this discussion with the Lakers, if they get to an Oklahoma City or a Minnesota in the first round, a lot of people are going to make the Lakers favorites in that series. And it's mainly not because those aren't good teams, and particularly Minnesota, because they're big and they defend really well. It's because of the lack of collective playoff success that those two teams have. And now you're going to take on a Lakers team with what they have and what they represent in LeBron James. So that would get interesting because maybe they get through that round, but I think that's where it would stop for me because that's when you run into a Clippers team potentially or you run into a Nuggets team in the next round, and I think that's where the run will end for the Lakers. They're going to be brought up week after week after week, particularly if they keep winning games the way they are right now and they're playing well as we head into the break. They're going to be a topic of discussion. I just look at them relative to what they are going to have to do and who they're going to have to play at full strength. And I think this is going to end after the first round.
They're always going to be a topic of discussion, but I find that other team in LA a little more interesting, the Clippers, and same with the Bucks in Boston, which we'll get into later segments in the show. Before we move on from the Lakers, guys, though, I want to ask you this, Legs. Is LeBron they made a run last season, right? They ended up making a run last season in the playoffs. Is LeBron the most important player for that to happen, or who will we be focusing in on?
He is for me, and here's why. When you look at all the teams, and we've talked about a number of them in the Western Conference, somebody's going to have to match or outplay the best player on those teams. That's going to be LeBron James because he is still capable of being able to do that. LeBron James is about control. And to me, that's where this becomes, the question about this team. What's most important? Anthony Davis, when he plays well, that's always been the thing. When Anthony Davis plays well, Lakers are tough to beat. I agree. But LeBron James is the one in control, even when Anthony Davis is playing well. So for me, it's always going to be about LeBron James. And if LeBron James is very good, it's not going to be good enough. He has to be great when you go up in these series against these top stars of these other teams, whether that's a Kevin Durant or that's a Luka or that's a Jokic or Shea or whoever it may be. It's going to fall on LeBron James. That's the guy that we're going to expect to be able to raise his level of play to go toe-to-toe with those best players. And then you hope Anthony Davis is better than the second star on those teams, or D'Angelo Russell has a very good series. But to me, it starts with LeBron because of the extent to which he controls the game and controls the pace of play. That is why he's the most important player still on the Lakers and will continue to be as long as he's on the court.
Wendy?
Everything that Legs just said makes sense, but I'm afraid that it's not really the answer. And the answer is why the Lakers have indigestion and why LeBron was looking for an upgrade at the trade deadline. I'm afraid that the answer to this question is D'Angelo Russell, because for the most part, LeBron and Anthony Davis have been constants this year. Now, LeBron's been bothered a little bit by this ankle injury. He's missed some games recently, but AD has been there almost every night. LeBron's missed a few games, but no big stretch of time. They have been there delivering, but they were there delivering, and the Lakers were playing below 500 basketball. The reason the Lakers have played so much better over the last month has been D'Angelo Russell. When he was moved back into the starting lineup about a month ago due to injuries, he has played some of the best basketball of the last 3 or 4 years. He's averaging 26 points and 6 assists over the last 15 games. The Lakers' offense has exploded. They were in the bottom 10 or 12 in offense for the big part of the first half of the season. These last few weeks, they've played some of their best offense that they've played literally in 4 decades. You think I'm joking? I'm not joking. The last 11 games, I said this last week, Stephen A. almost fell out of his chair. They are playing Showtime-level Lakers offense. And it's really tied to D'Angelo Russell. It's not that LeBron and AD haven't been doing it. LeBron and AD are going to show up and play. They're going to deliver. But they just can't score legs. This team just doesn't have enough offensive talent to not have that third option. And it's, there's other things going on too. Hachimura has gotten healthy and has moved in the starting lineup. Austin Reeves has found his comfort level playing alongside D'Angelo Russell. There's other stuff going on. But really, it's been Russell getting hot. And the reason that gives the Lakers so much anxiety is that he is known in his career for running hot and cold. Hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. He could easily go right back into a cold streak, and the Lakers could get dragged down with it. So if you're hoping for a Lakers run, if you're hoping they can get into that top 6, which is still possible on their plate, D'Angelo Russell's got to stay hot. And I'm sorry to say it, but he's probably the most important Laker going forward.
No, I love the take, and I think, look, the supplemental offense, and where's that going to come from? We could say the same thing about some of these other teams that have multiple stars. That guy in that third slot, that fourth slot, right? How are they going to shoot the ball? How are they going to play? Because in a playoff series, more attention is directed at the stars. You have a game-by-game adjustment made by your opponent in figuring out ways to blitz guys and trap guys and get the ball out of their hands. So there are more opportunities, actually, as you go deeper into a series for those guys, slotted 3, 4, and 5 on any of these rosters. I just think it's kind of ironic that we're talking about the Lakers and saying all these things that have to happen and have to go right for them. And that's exactly my point, why I just don't think all of those things are going to line up when you have to get to a certain number every night against some of these teams and what they represent offensively on a given night. I don't know that the Lakers can match that at their best in a 7-game series.
Yeah, and I'm with you, Wendy. I don't feel like this is LeBron's last stand, but what would be interesting to me if it was his last stand alongside his son, which I know he would ultimately love to see happen. That'd be pretty epic.